transport, pipes and drums provided the entertainment today at the start of Army Reserve Week, which is mainly aimed at boosting recruits. Today's recital at Fort Scratchley was attended by Sir Colin Hines, President of the RSL, and a number of Army Reserve officials. Tomorrow, Army Reserve recruiting officers take to the streets, and there's also a workshop at the Adamstown depot. But it was today's colourful parade at Fort Scratchley which attracted most attention for the Army Reserve. Which attracted most of the applause at today's presentation of prizes at the No. 1 Sports Ground. The ceremony marked the end of a hectic week of netball and hockey in Newcastle, the host city for the championships. The final matches of the round-robin series were played this morning. In hockey, New South Wales met ACT and finished the comp on 13 points after this game, which involved 4 Newcastle girls who are members of the New South Wales team. However, some of today's netball matches were still being played up until the start of the official ceremony. Again, in one of the matches, New South Wales played the ACT. The teams had come from far afield for the secondary schools championships, including Perth. And most stayed on for the closing stages to pay tribute to New South Wales, the 1983 under-16 hockey and netball champions.
Could we now have, please, on this occasion?
J.C. Marconi was one of Australia's original medicine men. His secret, a salve that included the kidney fat of goannas. His product survived 2 world wars and was still manufactured by his descendants until last year. Today it no longer includes goanna fat, and claims of its benefits are somewhat milder than yesteryear. However, Ewan Murdoch, who's attempting to put the goanna salve story together, believes modern medicine proves early bush remedies did have something going for them.
I think they had to in those days. Back in the 1910, when goanna first came on the market, people living in the bush lived a long way from medical care, and what they did is they all developed their own home cure, so to speak, and that's how the product originally first started.
Because it originally used fat from the kidney of a goanna. You don't use that now. People must wonder whether it's still as good.
Well, we haven't used goanna oil for about 20 years. It's made up just purely and simply of natural bush ingredients which are available in the bush in those days, things like eucalyptus and camphor and menthol and oil of wintergreen and so forth.
Thanks, John. Good morning. 14 degrees to start the day, nice and sunny, winds blowing from the north, but only very small waves for the board riders. The waves are quite small, around 1 metre at the open beaches. The swell's from the northeast, and it doesn't look like being too much of a day for the board riders, I'm afraid. The tide's fairly low at the moment, and there still aren't many waves breaking. The situation doesn't look like improving all that much. Winds from the north look like staying that way for most of the day. Conditions will become choppy and bumpy at all city beaches. In fact, conditions haven't smoothed since yesterday afternoon. If you'd like to go for a swim this morning, most of our city beaches are quite safe. And now a look at the weather, and the forecast says morning fogs, a mild day with cloudy patches, northwest to northeasterly winds at 20 to 30 kilometres per hour, and seas slight on a low swell. Newcastle heading for a top today of 20 degrees, Scone expecting a top of 18. Low tide will be at 15 minutes past 8 this morning, 0.5 of a metre, and high tide at 2:56 this afternoon, 1.5 metres. And the outlook for Wednesday to Friday, a change developing Wednesday or Thursday with a little rain. Well, there we have it. Small waves for the board riders, around 1 metre at the open beaches, swell from the northeast. Now there shouldn't be any problem with pollution at Merewether this morning, more likely to be south of Burwood Beach. For the swimmers, conditions quite safe, northerly winds, going to become choppy this afternoon, a top of 20 degrees for Newcastle. Have a great day, back again tomorrow morning.
Both players attended the judiciary hearing at Newcastle Leagues Club last night, anxious to be cleared for the weekend's big game. Wallace was first up, accompanied by club president Jeff Light and referee Cole Russell, who sent off both players from Sunday's game on the report of touch judge Dennis Smith. The league judiciary, headed by John McMorrow, dismissed both charges due to insufficient evidence. Wallace takes his place in Sunday's preliminary semi-final against Lakes United, while Patrick will lead Curry in Saturday's sudden death against Cessnock.
Charge at this stage, shall we?
While the executive of the Federated Ironworkers Association has endorsed the new steel package, the rank and file hasn't. Today, FAA officials held 2 meetings with union delegates from the BHP and a number of subsidiary companies affected by the agreement, including Lysarts, tube makers and ComSteel. Assistant National Secretary of the Union, Mr Bill Hopkins, outlined what the agreement was all about. He stressed that any further industrial disputation in the industry must be within the guidelines set out in the agreement. Steel industry delegates are also meeting in Port Kembla this week. The next stage will be to hold a seminar for delegates who can then go back and put all the information to the rank and file. Mr Hopkins did concede today that there was still a lack of confidence in BHP.
Their concerns just that the plan itself will work, that being able to engender some sort of confidence in BHP. The industrial relations over there have not been good in the past, and we're hopeful that we can develop a trust between the company and its workforce.
So the delegates did have some doubt about their plan with BHP?
Yes, they are concerned that they might be pressured too far by BHP and being asked to do unreasonable amounts of work. And we've ensured the delegates that we will not be supporting that approach, that we want things to be reasonable at all times.
Visitors at the 113 Field Battery at Adamstown were shown how the Army Reserve operates in the field. A gun post was set up in the same way that it would be during training and exactly the same way that it would be during a war. Nearby, and the focus of much attention, was a control post responsible for coordinating the combat operation. Over at the 16th Transport Squadron base, the reservists took the opportunity to show off their driving skills, and the competition was on to prove who was the best. The reservists call this obstacle course the Monte Carlo. To the driver of an average sedan it may look easy, but in a much more cumbersome Land Rover it certainly isn't, especially when you're breaking your neck to complete the course in record time. Last night's winner by a long way was this young man, a shining example of an Army reservist. Complaints from the other drivers that he had an unfair advantage were overruled, perhaps because of his popularity with the crowd. In fact, at one stage, it looked as if he was going to steal the show from the 16th Transport Squadron pipe band. purpose of last night's display and all other Reserve Week activities is twofold. Firstly, the Army Reserve is out to show the public what it's all about, but most importantly, it's after new recruits.
We're looking for tradesmen of various descriptions, the young bloke from 17 to 35 years old, drivers, clerks, storemen, cooks, and of course stewards and various other trades, infantrymen, bandsmen, and of course pipes and drums.
What sort of activities will they be involved in if they join the Army Reserve?
Well, firstly they start out with a 2-week recruit course, which is in Bardia Barracks in Sydney, and then from that they come back to the units and do their normal training, and depending on what trade they go into, virtually that's what they do at their particular unit.
However, the Minister, with members of his staff, coal industry representatives and the industry's Canberra lobbyist, did make a brief stop at the Port Waratah coal loader. As much as being a chance to see some of the Hunter's mining infrastructure, today's tour was a chance for the Minister to canvass the federal government's policy on resource taxes, and that is that mining companies should be taxed on profit rather than production. The Senator admitted, however, the states which benefit from indirect taxes like rail freights are yet to be convinced.
Fiscal pressure can be brought to bear on the states. We're not anxious to go down that road. We would prefer to persuade the states that... I should add perhaps that the reaction from within the industry is mixed to this proposal, and some of this is on the public record, that some coal mine operators support the policy changes which we're proposing, some do not. It depends principally upon whether they are operating innately high cost or innately low cost mines.
But surely, unless they can reduce those costs, Australia runs a risk of being squeezed out of the world coal market.
Yes, I think there's a much better realisation of that among governments, among producing companies and among the workforce involved in the coal mining industry, that if we are to sell continuing volumes of coal into world markets, we have to remain cost competitive. We also, of course, have to ensure that supply can be guaranteed, or at least that supplies are reliable.
You Can't Take It With You is a mixture of comedy, romance and homespun philosophy, tossed together with a good dollop of eccentricity to make an agreeably light-hearted piece of entertainment. The storyline is simple. The unusual behaviour of a happy-go-lucky family threatens the marriage of a young daughter into a wealthy and conventional family. Newcastle Dramatic Art Club tried valiantly to give the show the bright and bubbly atmosphere it needed, but all too often they didn't hit the nail on the head. Generally, the approach was too heavy for this will-o'-the-wisp type of comedy. The illness of an important cast member made a last-minute substitution necessary, and although Frank Lind coped admirably with the role of Grandpa, this problem really contributed to the sense of unease the production had throughout. You Can't Take It With You, I think, will develop as the run continues. They'll get more confident and it will flow more freely, but all the cast members have to look at tightening and lightening their performances to give it the bright and bubbly feeling it needs.
The glamour and death-defying feats of the circus have long fascinated children, but the students of Katara Public School decided to look a little deeper. For the past 12 weeks, the whole school has been learning about the workings of a circus, from the administration to the acts themselves. In fact, they decided to conduct their own circus, with great acts like Courageous Cornsey and Barbell Brewy, and the unforgettable Matt the Magnificent with his marvellous lines. Quite a bit of practice went into today's performance, so it's hoped all that hard work will deter the youngsters from running off and joining the real thing.
The official opening of the Tanilba Bay Public School today comes 18 months after it began operations. The site was originally the Lemon Tree Passage Public School, but money was allocated in 1980 to build new facilities because the population of the area has grown beyond all expectations. Built at a cost of just over $1 million, the school includes 6 classrooms, a library and an auditorium to seat 400 people. It was in the auditorium that the Education Minister, Mr Mulock, officially opened the complex. The Minister made no comments about the impending teachers' strike during the ceremony. Afterwards, however, he poured scorn on the Teachers Federation claims that 700 jobs would be lost next year without increased education funding in the coming state budget.
That's not a correct statement. What it really is that on present staff ratios, because there's falling school population in the primary, you would need 700 less teachers. But we are considering claims for betterment and improvements as requested by the Teachers Federation and the P&C Federation, and we've told them so.
You're considering those claims, but you're not guaranteeing that no teachers are going to lose their jobs because of the falling student ratios.
Oh yes, we've given that guarantee. The Premier and I have both said that no teachers will be retrenched in the next budget period.
Boats afloat, that's the theme for this year's boat show. And if you happen to be a boating fanatic or simply like to see them skimming across the water, the Newcastle Boat Show can satisfy. Thousands of people flock to Spears Point today to check out the latest advances in the boating world. This duo propeller from Sweden created quite a bit of interest. It's only been available in Australia for 3 months, and its manufacturer, Volvo, claims fuel economy and increased acceleration will make it hard to beat. Another slightly older seagoer was also on display. The Krite has well and truly etched its way into the Australian history books. It was the first ship to be captured by the Royal Australian Navy in the Pacific Zone during World War II. Since then, the hero ship has been fulfilling a community role. But now, calls are being made for the 23-metre vessel to be run aground at the War Memorial in Canberra. The money raised at the boat show will go towards 3 causes: the Wangi Lions Club, the Royal Volunteer Coastal Patrol and the RSL Wangi Amateur Sailing Club.